if the only reason somebody's hiring you is because you have fancy gear, then you're doing it wrong. Eric asked a really good question. And this was one of those things that I kind of thought about when I was first getting started, because I was backpacking through Europe with a couple buddies of mine. We were in Florence. We met this other American girl there who was staying in our hostel, and she was awfully cute and she had a camera. And I'm like, you and I are going to be besties now. And my friends are like, man, her camera is way fancier than yours. I'm like, well, I don't need a big camera to take really good pictures, because I took really good pictures on that vacation. And those were like the first pictures that I ever sold and made money from were from that little camera. And honestly, I couldn't afford to buy a bigger, fancier camera. So I had to make do with what I had. And then when I decided to start shooting people for the first time, the first light that I had was not unlike the one that's lighting me right now. It was like one of those silver reflector dishes you put a floodlight in to light your back patio. And I had just normal light bulbs inside of it. Now, given, I am not saying that you should do that, because the light that came out of those things was absolutely garbage. But that was my first setup. So I could only get better from there. And once I'd realized, like, people is my jam, this is what I want to photograph, I looked at some real lights. And I bought a set of lights about 10 years ago, some Calumet Genesis, because again, they're like $300 a piece. That's what I could afford at the time. I bought one 36-inch Octabox, a speed ring, so I could use it. And that was like my setup. So 99% of the photos that I take are one light setup from a 36-inch Octabox, because that's what I had. Now I have 3 other lights and I'll use them as like hair lights and stuff for headshots, but I don't have any other soft boxes. I never used umbrellas or anything else. So most of my work and a vast majority of everything I did, all that one light setup with that Octabox. And if you show up to the shoot and they don't think you have fancy enough gear to do a professional shoot, then you found the wrong client, and you should just, part ways, thank them for their time and move on if they're really putting up that big a deal over it. I mean, obviously, don't show up with like an iPhone 4 and like, all right, cool, let's do our photo shoot with like a mag light in one hand and your cell phone in the other. But if you have a DSLR and you know what you're doing, then who cares what equipment you're using? But as long as you meet the minimum requirements, then you are solid. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to hit subscribe down below so you never miss an episode. And be sure to swing on by our private Facebook community, Photogs Unite, where you can learn with other photogs from around the world who are just like you. And until next time, photogs, remember that every photo you take brings you one step closer.